Welcome back to the Northstar Politics Show. Now, capitalism reminds me of the tale of King Midas, who began seeking prosperity for people, but soon even his own touch became a curse. I mean, think about it. There's literally gold everywhere and nothing left to eat. This is the reality for most people across the country, particularly in the housing sector. So the good news is a new law has come into action this week that mandates social housing landlords to investigate and fix serious hazards to ensure tenant safety. But why did a toddler have to die for this law to come into action in the first place? Rest in peace, Awab. Tragedy has also struck across the world on the island of Jamaica, Cuba, and Bahamas, with Hurricane Melissa reminding us all of how fragile we humans really are. But let's not forget, nothing really is natural about this at all. This is entirely the result of man-made climate change. In the name of profit, we have destroyed the planet. And so, it's destroying us in return. I suppose the Midas touch really is a curse. So why though? Why are we so addicted to a system that aims to end us, and how do we break free? Turn back to God. Yes, you heard me. Religion is not the opium of the people, but the thing that can set us free. We discuss all of this and more today. Let's get into it. Noah, chat to me. How are you? Now listen, men don't really talk about mental health regularly, but you get an hour a week from me. How generous am I for that? So tell me.
You hear my mental health hour?
100%.
Deary me. Look what we got to put up with. Men used to go to war and I still do.
You know what? Actually, it's probably more like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but go ahead. Tell me how you are.
I'm doing all right. You know, I've been enjoying the week. Been an interesting week. Been listening to some good music. Been doing well in the gym. All the kind of things, yeah. All the plates are spinning at the right time. How about you?
Yeah, I think things are falling into place. I mean, we're finally on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank God. No thanks to our producer, Tariq. Thank you very much for that.
Our producer, Tariq, he decided to head away to Spain for the week to go do some serious cycling in Girona while the boys were doing the technical stuff back here.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
Hopefully I'll join him soon.
Well, you actually might join him soon. So what's happening next week? Talk to me about that.
Well, I'm not off to Girona, but I'm away. I'm heading to Munich.
Okay, so you're telling me you took your eyes off the Northstar. That is what you're telling me.
If in any way, my eyes will be more on the Northstar. I'll be watching like you guys at home.
Okay.
So my eyes, I'll get that that viewer experience you guys at home. Yeah, I'll be in the comments, and I'll be even more fiendishly online, because this week, I think some of the clips we dropped started to really get some discussion going.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really liked how last week we, had some time for grandma chat, because both of us proudly raised by our Caribbean grandmothers, and so it's always good to pay some homage to them. I think it's always good to start off our podcast giving the viewers a bit of little tidbits around who we are as people, and I wanted to introduce this concept that, guys, we are actually sassy men. Okay.
Famously, if you know anything about me back in the day, my quote was, "It's a sassy man pandemic and I'm patient zero."
Well, that's the thing. We're so sassy, we don't even know who's patient zero or patient one, because at this point, that's one of our big debates. And the reason I bring that up is because, listen, we have an ambition to obviously grow this. And so we've started putting little feelers out to see who wants to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
However, some people are not responding to us. Can you imagine?
I've seen it live in the flesh. And you know what it is like, there's different kinds of guests we'll get in. Some people, we like them to come and sit on the weekly Northstar Politics show and discuss the week's events for you guys at home. Other people, we like to come on and have a formal sit-down interview in a slightly different setting. So we've got our ideas of people we'd like to see on, but obviously we're not omniscient, and it's not just about us. We'd like you guys as well to throw out suggestions. And if you have people that you maybe know in your network or you follow already, message them, say you need to go sit with the Northstar boys.
And that's a diplomatic response. My response though is, don't become an enemy of the star.
He loves this one.
Don't become an enemy of the star. Okay.
If Sean reaches out to you, you don't respond quickly, just know, you're up on his dartboard quickly.
My pride, my ego, everything just like falling down.
No, but honestly, it's been lovely, the response we've been having from a few different people that have been reaching out to us, saying they'd like to come on the show. So in the future, there will be people. We're going to have some people co-hosting with us. Sometimes we're one or two of us away. So next week, we're going to have a really exciting co-host. And sometimes we'll sit down and interview people. And
dropping a hint, he's one of the biggest TikTokers in the political space.
Bigger than you.
I'll give him that, because you know what, metrics don't lie. But after him, it's me.
Fairs. But yeah, as Sean mentioned, you can now find us. If you don't want to see our beautiful faces, totally understandable. You can find us on Spotify, Apple. For the performative people out there, we're going to be producing a vinyl every week of each episode, if you want to let that go on the turntable. But there's more channels to find the boys. And honestly, even if you're not going to listen to us on Spotify and Apple, go to there. Review us.
Yes,
Make
please.
sure you're liking all the platforms. We need that kind of support.
And we're so close to 500 subscribers, which would be insane to hit soon. So please remember to subscribe, because that is literally how we are. that's the only way we can, actually do this.
Yeah, literally, like as we say as we said from episode 1, we're trying to build a bit of a community, and that takes not just two to tango, it takes everyone to get involved. So as much as we're here doing this sort of work on your end, there's loads of things you can do at the moment to support the boys, and keep your eyes posted. Hopefully we'll be meeting some of you in person soon, and definitely into the new year we're going to be branching out into loads of different avenues.
In fact, we actually might even be doing a little bit of a debate soon against the Young Conservatives, so follow our social media to keep up to date.
That is true.
With that.
Honestly, a bit of an insight into me then is back when I was younger, I was very much a debater. And my first time before I went
we know. Remember?
But that wasn't even a debate. I didn't get together back and forth with Boris Johnson. Otherwise, it would have been smoky settings. But when I was younger, my first time actually going to Oxford was to attend like the World Finals of the Oxford Union debate or the Oxford British Parliamentary Debate Competition. And there's like photos of me, which maybe we'll even tag in here if I can find them, of me at the Oxford Union when I was like 14, not knowing I was going to end up going to university there. But it was a big part of my childhood was debating. So it'll be interesting to put the shoes back on.
Humble flex, but yes, smoky settings coming to the Young Conservatives very soon. Hopefully we can get some clips and share it on our social media as well.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to it. The debate will be around immigration.
And the clips we dropped recently have really set the timeline on light, have been around immigration. And I think we're going to look to take a bit more of a nuanced opinion of it, but then also be quite firm in our beliefs.
For sure. Now, look, we have a meaty episode coming up, so I don't want to kind of bog the viewers down and be a bit boring about talking just about us.
Yeah. No, honestly, we've got so much coming up this episode. It's going to be slightly newsy, get some headlines going, get some discussion going, and then get into the weekly echo chamber and let me land that you guys love. Okay, so into the state of play. And this week, there's a lot of things that have happened, both in the UK and abroad. The first two topics are ongoing problems in Sudan and Palestine that we just want to touch on as they are developing. These aren't really things that maybe we'll give our opinion of because, one, they'll be quite clear, but also these are developing situations we just want to give a brief précis of. So over the past couple of days, we've actually seen the fall in Sudan of El Fasher, which is the capital city of the North Darfur region in Western Sudan. So as a lot of you at home might know, there's been an ongoing conflict between the Sudanese Armed Forces, which will have an acronym for the SAF, and the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, which are seen as the insurgent military group. The RSF has its roots in this Darfur region and an earlier sort of roots in the Janjaweed militia, which people might have remembered from like news clippings back in the day. So El Fasher has became a key battleground because it was among the last remaining major strongholds of the army in Darfur, of the National Army, and it was a refuge for thousands of internally displaced people. So one thing that people might have seen over the past few years, civil war in Sudan, is this real problem of internal displacement. So not necessarily refugees fleeing to neighboring countries, but people that have been moved outside of their natural homes. So since 2023, El Fasher has become a major battleground. And over the course of the past 18 months, the RSF has launched essentially a siege on the city, withdrawing humanitarian support, committing what have been classed by many as genocidal actions, the killing of innocents, and honestly just atrocities that, sometimes you see visuals of it, but one thing with the Sudanese conflict is oftentimes you don't actually see that many visuals. Over the past couple of days, the RSF has announced that it has taken the main SAF infantry division based in El Fasher. And then a day later, the SAF leadership confirmed that its army has withdrawn from the city, giving the RSF full control. The reason this matters is because it concludes the 18 months of siege from the RSF, but it also gives them strategic hold of a whole subsection of the country. So people at this point are a bit concerned that now with this extra strategic control, the RSF will be able to set up a proxy government or a proxy state, effectively splitting Sudan in two. From a humanitarian standpoint, this is obviously very concerning because we've seen the violent practices that they've upkept during their siege, but also there's a wider international relations point to this, where, as many of you at home will also know, the UAE is incredibly complicit in supporting the RSF, supplying them with arms, supplying them with weaponry, supplying them with intelligence. And even though on the face of it, the UAE standpoint is we need to have a political and diplomatic means, their actual advocacy on the ground has been for a totally murderous militia group. So, as I say, this is a developing issue and we'll leave it there, but I would encourage everyone at home to do their research on what is going on in Sudan at the moment. The civil war is maybe something that people can even easily understand, but the actual implications within a wider international relations conflict are a lot more complex. But it'll be something that comes up a lot more. The second one is similar to what we spoke about last week, what's going on in Palestine. As you guys know, we documented the ceasefire agreements. We gave our suspicions that Israel would do a lot to undermine these ceasefire agreements, and then we've also commented on the fact that Israel has done that. So 2 horrifying things to come out of Palestine over the last few days. And as I say, these are not things that we're necessarily going to discuss that much, but it's really important that we keep discussing these things and keep those in the public consciousness, especially as people callous their hearts towards the Palestinian cause.
And yeah, just wanted to come in on that. Again, we're going to do our research to bring you more in-depth, thorough analysis on what's going on. But when it comes to giving advice to the viewers of what you can do at home, I think we need to start opening up the conversation around understanding who the perpetrators are behind Sudan, like you mentioned, the UAE. And actually, a lot of the energy that we put towards Israel, a lot of Muslims, going to boycott, etc. I think we need to start opening up the conversation around that. So we're not going to get into it now, but it's just something for the viewers at home to start thinking about as well.
And just to give the overview of the developing situation in Palestine. So Israel accused Hamas of attacking its troops in Rafah on Tuesday of this week, leaving 1 dead. In response, Israeli airstrikes in Gaza City, Khan Yunis, and refugee camps throughout Gaza have killed over 100 Palestinians, 46 children, and 104, the Palestinian Ministry of Health says in total, with 253 people being wounded. Aside that, there's also been the formal accusation of systematic organ theft by the Gazan authorities from Israel. So the Gazan authorities have levied the accusation against Israel. There's been systematic and institutionalized organ theft of Palestinian detainees. So horrific accusations being levied against the Israeli armed forces, and also a continuation of Israel trying to undermine the ceasefire efforts.
And may I add, that organ theft headline is shocking, but it's something that's actually been happening for a very, very long time. And people can do their research on that at home as well.
Yeah, and I mean, people in the UK will have studied World War II and propaganda and these sorts of things. And a big thing that anyone would have been taught to understand is the dehumanization that needs to happen for soldiers to go and fight against other humans. And what you're seeing here is the logical consequence of the level of dehumanization that a lot of Israelis have been sort of educated within to have for the Palestinians, and what comes of that.
And also the sort of complicity that our governments have in all of this is related to that dehumanization, because they play into it with their rhetoric as well, especially with that kind of meta-narrative that we've spoken about in the past around this ongoing fight against Islamic extremism, etc.
Precisely. So yeah, 2 really important things to keep in our mind and keep in the headlines: what's going on in Sudan and Palestine. Moving on to not a great topic as well. Unfortunately, it's been a pretty horrendous week in terms of the news, but a lot of you might have heard Hurricane Melissa. A massive Category 5 hurricane that is traveling through the northern Caribbean countries or Caribbean islands, the strongest to hit certain islands since 1851. So it's hit thus far Jamaica, Cuba, and is heading towards the Bahamas. In Cuba, over 735,000 people were evacuated. In Jamaica, 850 shelters had to be opened, and there's been dozens of deaths. The slow-moving storm started as a Category 3 hurricane, has progressed to a Category 5. To give context for maybe more of a relevant image, this is stronger than Hurricane Katrina, which decimated the southern US in the early 2000s. This actually touches quite close to home for me. So I'm from Dominica, which is in the lower Antilles, which is very frequently on hurricane paths. Fortunately for Dominica, this isn't the case, but I remember growing up, my mum sending barrels home, people in Dominica, and seeing the state of devastation for my family's house back home. But this is also close to me because I spent the last year, some might or might not know, living in the Bahamas. So I reached out to some of my friends in the Bahamas who are still there. And the Bahamas, for some that don't know, is like a country of about 350 odd islands. And what they've said is that the main metropolis in Nassau isn't going to be hit, but a lot of what they're called family islands, where people go back to see their family, have had to be evacuated. On a second leg of that, I also spent some time in Cuba last year and have friends in Cuba who I reached out to. Wow. Shout out Frank if you're watching. And he said to me that fortunately Havana is going to remain largely untouched, but people in the Santiago province are very much at risk and in need of our prayers. So I'll ask you your initial thoughts. We have some developments we'd like to talk about in terms of this hurricane, but just your initial thoughts on what's going on in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly concerning and it's also devastating. I think today I was just scrolling on my laptop, just trying to see the updates because, again, we're 2 West Indian boys doing this and, the Caribbean is one big family. And so it's really hurtful to see this happening to your family back home. Obviously, from my personal perspective, I mean, Trinidad is actually kind of naturally, thank God, blocked from a lot of hurricanes because of the mountainous regions. And so nothing happens there that's too devastating when it comes to hurricanes. But I do want to say a couple things. The first is, I've scrolled on TikTok and saw the actual reactions of Jamaicans in all of this.
Oh, dear.
And actually but you know what it is? We really understand it because we're from the West Indies, but seeing the joy despite the situation has put a real big smile on my face.
Yeah.
And actually, it shows you the kind of the depths of human optimism and hope and where it can take you in situations like this. So I just think, yeah, shout out to the Jamaicans. Please, everyone, look online, donate, because, you know, words are basically meaningless right now. We should be putting our money where our mouth is.
And also, I'm going to say something as well.
Yeah.
Especially living in London, and maybe for people other living in like metropolises around like the West. So I'm thinking New York, Toronto.
Oh,
Jamaica's done a lot for us. Like, we've got to call it how it is, yeah. Jamaica has done a lot for us. Jamaicans gave us hip hop. Jamaica's done countless different things for us. If you're living in London, I know a lot of you are dropping slang and music and all these sorts of things, dancehall. And now when Jamaica's really on the brink, I need to be seeing you putting pounds in that, because they provided a lot for you guys.
100%.
Me included. There is a political angle to this.
Of course.
And you've probably seen it, where it's like people are starting to wake up to this idea of environmental injustice. Have you seen that on the timeline?
No, of course. Like, it's this idea that, okay, this is a natural disaster, sure, but this natural disaster has been exacerbated by man-made actions. The fact that climate change has literally resulted in the winds being far more intense, the rain's been far more torrential, and so the injustice angle of this all, which I'm sure you're going to go into, is the idea that the places in the world which literally don't contribute as much relatively to climate change, to carbon emissions, to global warming, are literally bearing the brunt of it all.
No, literally. I mean, so the Caribbean itself has as a region, has one of the lowest carbon emissions of the whole of the world. I can speak for myself, coming from Dominica. Dominica is literally a jungle.
Yeah.
Barely any industrialization, but yet we're subject to increasingly worsening hurricanes. In this particular instance, one of the big problems that's caused it to be such an unprecedented hurricane is that the water around the Jamaican islands and the North Caribbean was warmer than it ever has been. And this is why when you see quotes from the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, there is no infrastructure in the region that can withstand a Category 5. This tells us that things are progressing. Jamaica obviously is not the most rich country, but it has developed its infrastructure to be able to withstand a natural level of weatherproofing. But the fact there is now no infrastructure that can sustain a Category 5 hurricane tells you that we're progressing, the sort of spiraling into global climate crisis at a faster rate that we can keep up with.
No, precisely. And I think that in all of this as well, it's really difficult for people. And then you spoke about it before, this concept of murder on the margins, and how in an increasingly technical, bureaucratic society, our actions are far separated from the consequences. And so our behavior, our overconsumption, everyone is really complicit in the natural consequences that are taking place across the world. And so this should be a moment of introspection for all of us to understand that, well, how can I make some small changes in my life, whether that's moving my money somewhere, not like boycotting some things, or even less lifestyle changes, to make sure that I'm not contributing to this, what is a civilizational crisis.
Yeah, and it's important what you said there, because I was worried when you said, how can people make small changes in their life? You were going to start buying into the carbon footprint model of, we all need to be drinking small straws, with plastic straws. But you said the right thing in the sense of, and this really underpins a lot of what Extinction Rebellion says. And I know being like climate conscious is not the most cool thing, but you got to let them land a little bit. Because what they'll argue is that what we're seeing with these worsening climate crises is the large oil producing or oil utilizing countries and manufacturers are causing the most impact, but yet ideologically we're so committed to this idea of climate change being a personal problem. Probably quite famously, people now know that the idea of a carbon footprint was developed as a way to personalize or privatize that responsibility, rather than us having our eyes on the companies that are doing the most damage. So when Sean says making those personal decisions, you should be thinking to yourself, how can I not support countries that are causing this problem? It's sort of a parallel example when we think about how can we not support companies that are providing arms for genocides? How can we not support companies that are causing the downfall of our global environment? And it's hard to think about sometimes. Like we say, murder on the margin. Some of you've maybe heard that before. Maybe you're a first-time listener. There's the idea that, you know, the extra pound you spend with your BP, British Petroleum Company, or some subsidiary of ExxonMobil isn't necessarily going to cause the damage. But the aggregate scale of that is what ends up with us seeing these sort of atrocities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it is just generally a bit of an injustice, and maybe it's a sort of internal PR problem of Extinction Rebellion and these groups. But the fact that you mentioned it in passing, but that they're uncool now. Like, okay, cool. They might have silly hair. They might go by different pronouns, whatever. Like, they are literally dedicating their lives to stopping a crisis that will end humanity. People are not realizing
literally rebelling against extinction.
That's what I'm saying. And so one thing that I'm interested in, and actually I don't really know if I have the answer, so I'll leave it to viewers to actually write in the comments and leave this, is that how do we actually win back that conversation around climate change? Because like you said, it's kind of unsexy, it's kind of uncool nowadays, and the right and a lot of propaganda has kind of swept it up so that the leaders of the free world literally don't even abide by global climate agreements anymore, or carbon emission agreements anymore, i.e. Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So then in the absence of that leadership, how do we actually try and, gain ownership over this narrative? I don't know.
Honestly, I think it's difficult, and I neither have the answers. So we'll leave that to the viewers. Honestly, literally put your suggestions in the comments. We want to see some solutions. We'll talk about it next week.
Can I just throw something out there?
Yeah.
Nuclear power.
How
does that play into that?
Now, we haven't done our research yet, but the Northstar boys, Northstar are nuclear. Do you know what I mean? We like the idea of that. But I want to flex on your behalf.
Go ahead.
This guy, back in his day, maybe not now, but back in his day, very, very good student. So when we were at when we were gracing the hallowed halls of Oxford, this guy graduated with a degree in philosophy, politics, and economics. We actually came top in a certain module out of everyone at Oxford.
I did.
Which was what?
Development of the world economy. So if the economy of the world needs developing, call me.
Call this guy.
Call me.
Call this guy.
Call me.
So I've got a question for you though, because I've got a little theory.
Oh, don't do this.
So I'm coming to you with my paper on this, and you as the tutor, you as the professor.
Bro, this is 3 years ago.
Oh, it's 3 years for me as well.
Okay.
But so I kind of think, and I also did this module, did not do as well. So I've got a couple basic ideas. But I think there's like a pervasive problem that will withstand the existence of the Caribbean, which is as we move into a information economy and a modern globalized economy, these countries are literally not designed to support that. Mm-hmm. And this comes a lot from me looking at Dominica, which is like the native name for Dominica is Whitechapel. Long or tall is her spine, because it's just a bunch of volcanoes and a bunch of jungle. And you can imagine to interact with the modern economy, that's almost impossible to set up the kind of infrastructure you'd need. These countries were really good economically for essentially sort of slavery and agricultural labor, but to engage in a modern economy, it's kind of a bit of a poison chalice. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that has been, or I think the Caribbean islands actually need to do politically, is quote unquote unionize. And so in the past, what you've had is attempts to create a Caribbean Community Association, which is like similar to like a European Union style of politics, but for the Caribbean. So I think one of the problems is that you're right. These countries structurally are not made for a lot of, the modern economy, climate crisis, etc. And so there's little parts that can be easily exploited by big players in the world. So that's when you see the US come in and try and create trade deals, etc. with these countries, and also China as well with their Belt and Road Initiative. And so instead, for Caribbean islands to actually have autonomy and reach a sort of level of self-determination, I think they need to understand the common interest between them as Caribbean people to actually think about forming some sort of alliance in that way, so that individually they're not as vulnerable to these big world powers. So that's my first thought. I don't know what you think about that, but
you forgot. I really like that. Is very true what you say.
Yeah.
But what I was probing for was something even a bit more theoretical, a little bit of reversal of fortunes talk.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Which is reversal of fortunes, like Darren Acemoglu's idea that certain countries that were really sort of problematic to colonize back in the day now bear the brunt of that. And even if back in the day maybe they were really economically active because of their fertile land and soil and these sorts of things, and they could be extracted from, now they're not really able to support a modern economy. But I agree with what you say. I think there's just an endemic problem that the Caribbean needs to solve, is how do we interact with the modern economy without just becoming a tax haven?
Yeah, but that's what I mean, because what a lot of these Caribbean islands are doing, that's why my mind went first to there, is that they are literally just trying to tag along with the winner in this kind of like global power struggle. And so, like, for example, recently, the US, what they've done is they've used Trinidad as just like a warship docking island to put pressure on Venezuela. Yeah. And so the ability for them to stand up for themselves is something that I think conversation needs to be had around that. And I'm sure they are domestically, but that's probably my thoughts.
Okay, I agree. But as we say, there's a lot that we can be doing to support people in Cuba, the Bahamas, Haiti, and Jamaica. So we'll try and leave some resources in the comments, but I'm sure you'll be seeing resources all around the internet. We're moving on from a natural problem overseas to a local problem.
Okay.
Well, I say problem, But so I'm born and raised Tower Hamlets, East Ender.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't mentioned that before.
No, but it feels like I haven't, because people need to understand that. And we're currently, where we record is on Mile End Road. Don't pull up, unless we invite you. And down Mile End Road, past sort of Stepney, Mile End Road turns into Whitechapel Road.
Where the streets are paved with gold, may I add.
As I always say, where the streets are paved with gold. And on the weekend, I was grabbing lunch with my mum, and she was telling me that, there's a protest around the corner. The UKIP are marching down Whitechapel Road. And there's a protest going on now. Well, I mean, to be honest, they didn't really deal with the protesters on the weekend anyway. They were told to sling their hook.
I mean, if you're from this area, you know that's just normal. So there you go.
As in another BMW crash.
At Northstar, we want to give you the real experience, right? That's why we don't believe in AI to cut out the background noise. Yeah, this is what it means to film in East London. But yeah.
So Saturday, UKIP. Do you remember them?
Washed up.
Old school name.
Yeah.
Like they're not around no more, as Terminator would say. You got not even come in your own ends, bud. So UKIP announced that they were going to try and march on Whitechapel. Anyone who's heard of the Battle of Cable Street, I wrote an article on it, you'll know it's not a good idea to come Tower Hamlets.
It is not a good idea.
We deal with fascists, we deal with them easy. But they announced they were going to march on Whitechapel. After there was loads of petition signed, community outcry, the police said that you're not allowed to march on Whitechapel because it's just going to cause too many problems. And really and truly, it's not going to go well for you. History has said.
And also, they wanted to march on Whitechapel to talk about deporting people as well.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Whitechapel is a very Bengali area. And not even necessarily a Bengali area, a very Sylheti area, which is a certain region in Bangladesh. So even though the UKIP members were told they can't march on Whitechapel, they had to go march in Kensington. Not as many Bengalis there. Anti-racist and local Muslim residents arranged a counter-protest. So there'll be some things you might have seen where there was sort of the anti-racist, left-wing, predominantly white, we might say, group with their banners and stuff marching down Whitechapel Road, calling for an end to racism and division. But then also a whole group of Muslims from the local area protesting. And Sean, I don't know if you attended because a lot of them were ballied off.
Yeah, you wouldn't know.
Yeah. And it caused a lot of commentary online, especially one certain scene where a load of Muslim men, I assume Muslim, I think I'm pretty safe in that assumption.
I think you're very safe in that
with
assumption.
balaclavas on, are walking through the middle in all black, and there's sort of these colourful, hokey-cokey left-wing protesters on the side, and the Muslims are sort of shouting Allahu Akbar. And one of the Muslim protesters, and they've been quite aggressive, I would say. I'm comfortable saying that. Maybe I won't be comfortable when I step out and walk down the road, but I'll take my risks.
Well, they weren't being aggressive to people on the side.
No, not to people on the side, but they
just for
an aggressive presence.
Yeah.
And the left-wing protest says, "Oh, we don't need that. We're on the same side." As someone barks back to them, "We're not on the same side."
We shouldn't be laughing, but that is so funny.
And the right just seized on that because one of the big right-wing points is all of you like left-wing ciabatta and salmon lovers. You're trying to make this alliance with the Muslims, but really, they're doing their undercover mujahideen, and you're just going to get like thrown in the bin with the rest of us when they take over.
Yep.
So, Sean, first question: were you on the march? What side were you on?
Do you condemn this?
But what do you think of it? Because honestly, it was ludicrous scenes.
Look, all right. So, for context for the viewers at home, I'm a revert to Islam. So, I became a Muslim.
You never mention it.
I actually haven't mentioned this here. So, look, anyways, I'm a revert to Islam. I became a Muslim 2 years ago, and so I have like an interesting perspective of both stepping into the world of Whitechapel, quite literally, because a lot of the people who helped me on my journey were from that area, but then also being outside of it and understanding or thinking, what is all of this religious nonsense, so to speak, about? So what do I think about this particular scene? I think it's a double-edged sword. And the reason for that is this. UKIP wanted to come, be all big and bad, and try and intimidate residents of a local area. But the residents of that local area simply came to show that you can't do this here. I think there's a lot of value in that. I don't think that in and of itself was problematic at all because, okay, cool, they're ballied up, they're wearing all black. Do I think that's the right way to do it or the right way to approach it? No, I don't. But then what people need to understand is Islam's not really a monolith. There are cultural particularities to how certain people act. And also it's a bit of a sample size bias because the types of Muslims who would go there were actually, aggravated in the first place by a lot of the rhetoric that they saw online.
So you're saying sort of an adverse selection problem where the Muslims who are like moderate and they'll just be at home.
Exactly, yeah. Precisely. So there's that. Now, on the other hand, the reason why it's a double-edged sword is because this basically just falls back into that right-wing narrative that there is a deep problem with Muslims here, that they are, intrinsically aggressive, that they are inherently here to basically take over, etc. And so it definitely will play on a lot of those fears. But the key distinction is that on a day-to-day, they're just going about their normal day. They're not really out here being an aggressive presence, causing mayhem, etc. Who are the people that do that? It's the right wing that go into these communities and march and actually make a statement. Most Muslims on their day-to-day, they just want to go about their own lives and just exist. But
I mean, obviously, intuitively, not dissimilar from any human.
No, precisely, yeah. And then I think that is actually the key distinction. Because, of course, in every community across the world, you're going to have people who are a bit more extreme, a bit more aggressive. Fine. No one's denying that exists. But a sort of common fallacy of generalizing a whole group based off what is literally a sample size or a subset is unfair. And also, I think the people on the other side wouldn't want that to be done to them. I was
going to say, could I not say that about what a lot of the left wing say regarding the right wing?
Expand.
There were people who sort of denigrate the right wing. They might characterize them solely as this sort of EDL faction, UKIP faction of really active, aggressive racist. When in fact, on the day-to-day, a lot of right-wing people might actually be quite well-intentioned in their thinking, even if it doesn't come out correctly.
I agree with that. I think a lot of the times that we speak about these particular topics, we talk about experience. And actually, there is one narrative or one sort of vision of a reality that you're going to get if you only consume media, headlines, your local communities, which are not made up of the other types of communities that you're concerned with. And so it's very easy to stay in your kind of echo chamber, so to speak. And we need to think about vehicles to help us just basically cross over.
I was going to say, one thing that I've realized, even with this show that we do, I've been a lot more in line than I would normally be. And I'm seeing a lot more things I would normally see. And one thing I've realized is really easy to, even if you're consciously aware this isn't representative, to allow the things you see online to feel as if they are representative. So I'll give you an example. We haven't done it as a headline story because it is very much a developing story and trying to understand what's happened there. But there was stuff online literally last night about the Afghan refugee where there was a multiple stabbing. Yeah. We can't really speak too much on it because we don't actually know the ins and outs. But when I saw that, I kind of realized to myself that I've allowed my thinking and my mindset to be caught up in the day-to-day of online social media to allow that to become representative, where I'm thinking, wow, it feels like every day something's happening. When in fact, you forget that the UK is a massive place. Horrible things are happening all the time. And if we pick and sort of cherry pick what happens online to represent the wider narrative, we're forgetting the thing we see every day. Yeah. You probably walk past 1,000 Muslim commuters every day just trying to get to work. Similarly to 1,000 right-wing people on the tube every day just trying to get to work as well.
And I also think the narratives online, particularly with that story, is that the right wing are almost excited or vindicated by the fact that this asylum seeker did this thing, and then are pointing the finger at people who are a bit more open to the idea of asylum seekers to be like, well, look what happened.
Exactly. Generalized.
This what happened. But then it's like they're trying to, like, I'm fine with saying, yeah, cool, get rid of this person, deport them. Like, they've literally broken the law and they've done something so hideous that, yeah, cool, get out of the country, that's fine. Like, what people need to realize is that we need to start thinking about principles over tribalism, truth over the tribe. And so we're just committed to certain principles. We're not committed to defending every single asylum seeker, full stop, or every single person who fits my clan or fits my tribe. And I think hopefully with some of the conversations that we have on Northstar, we can delve into a bit more as well.
And I mean, maybe I'll probe into a bit of a sensitive area here just to wrap off this topic. But, and I'm going to frame it as a question because I still would like to go and eat on Whitechapel Road. But I think it's out of order how they're moving.
Yeah, well, I think...
Ballied up. Brothers, you're looking aggressive. You're dressed all in black, shouting, in balaclavas. I would say that about any person that was doing that. Well, I just don't think it's not right. And you know the way that's going to be interpreted.
Well, let me just tell you for a fact, a lot of Muslims were disappointed in how they behaved. And that is just a fact. Imams came out, spoke about it. Do I think it was very Islamic, the way they carried themselves? No, I don't. But then this is what happens when you aggravate a bunch of people.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not Muslim, but I am a black man. And it feels like, obviously there's intersections of black Muslims, but I feel like a lot of times Muslims are now being characterized in a similar way to black people have been for ages if they're really aggressive and these sorts of things. And there's a way to handle that, which is you arrive at this counter protest making clear to the global media that we're watching you that we are just normal people. If it ends up being a scrap, then have your East End line dance. Let it be. But don't make it seem as if you are the aggressor, because that is the implication that everyone will take from it already because of that prejudgment, because of that prejudice.
And I mean, the irony of it all is that there is quite literally symmetries between their behaviour and also the British patriots who have come marching into London town.
It seems like they're really getting involved in that classic British tradition of a scrap. You know what I mean? But we'll leave it there. And hopefully, I mean, how many times will the fascists have to learn? You don't come to our Hamlets.
But let us know your thoughts as well, because I'm very interested.
Definitely, please let us know your thoughts, because a lot of these issues we dealt with today are a little bit nuanced. And that one especially, I'm not too sure how to feel. Because I think, you are trying to defend the ends, but I don't like the look.
Not the way. The intention may have been good, but the execution, not ideal.
Yeah. We talk a lot about it's structural injustice. We've mentioned it already today, murder on the margins. And there's, for our fourth topic, or our final topic in the state of play, there's been this new act introduced called the Mold Law, or Ishak's Law, or Awab's Law, pardon me. And I'll give the background, and then we'll get into a bit of discussion, because this is kind of a positive end, but comes from a horrific initial starting point. So Awab Ishak was a 2-year-old boy from Rochdale who died from a respiratory condition which was caused by exposure to black mold in 2020. So people understand that sometimes when you're living in not particularly lovely accommodation, you can end up having malfunctioning boilers, malfunctioning pipes, and mold developing on the ceiling because the room's too hot, too humid, too dirty. So Awab's Law is a new law that came into force yesterday, I believe, and it requires social landlords to fix reported damp, mold, and emergency repairs within strict timeframes. It will focus first on damp and mold before covering further housing hazards from 2026. So this has been seen as somewhat of a victory for people that are private tenants or living in social housing, and it sort of represents that tension between private interests of landlords to essentially cost cut as much as they can. You even see memes online sort of humouring the fact that landlords will just paint over any problem, and the real lived experience of this young boy who tragically lost his life because of essentially being suffocated by the home he lived in.
This is a classic thing that we talk about, and we will continue to talk about, and it's this idea of housing being treated as a commodity versus housing being treated as a right. And it's incredibly disheartening that for this law to even be passed in the first place, which in my opinion should have been made law a long time ago, an innocent 2-year-old had to die. And this is piggybacked off years back with the Grenfell Tower. And how it was the private decisions that resulted in the tower having bad cladding, cost cutting because of different materials, etc. And so this wider question around very important things that are so useful for human existence, i.e. housing, being left to private hands, is quite literally killing people.
And I think in the UK, I often wonder why it's such a difficult topic to broach, this idea of social housing, because it feels like it's very much within the British spirit that we have free access to healthcare at the point of need. Yeah? No one would argue that. It would be political suicide to get up there and say you shouldn't have free access to healthcare. But fundamentally, what is the biggest sort of need for someone to live a healthy life? It's safe housing.
Of course.
And the fact that that's not ever factored into our thinking about healthcare within that British cultural or British tradition is just insane to me. Again, we talk about murder on the margin. This child wasn't killed by someone physically suffocating him or a violent act, just that marginal sort of worsening or decay of his living
Careless
situation.
Careless decision making,
profiteering, aiming for that extra pound has ended up killing this poor child. And in fact, you see these inflammatory incidences where there's something so outrageous that a change has to be done. This young child's death, Grenfell Tower. But in fact, people are having their lives shortened by a year, 2 years. Their quality of life worsened marginally. Near where we're recording, down in the south end of Tower Hamlets, near the Rotherhithe Tunnel, there's a primary school which is having protests year on year because of the fumes that the children are having to inhale. And the way that our society currently works is we can't animate public consciousness unless someone dies.
No, it is horrible. But I do want to say that because this Awab's Law came in the news this week for social housing, but then also there's been a bunch of different rental rights granted to private renters as well under a new law that's been passed this week. And so this is the victory of activists, campaigners, and people who have kept this on the national consciousness. Politicians, the Labour Party, etc., they're going to try pass this off as this is something that they did. But no, they were forced to do this.
And that's how it works.
Yeah, it is.
And I think when we think about political storytelling or political commentary or political activism, a big thing that we try and centralize is animating that marginal injustice. Because it is hard, and that is the role of someone who's a political activist. If you understand that there is poor housing conditions, not everyone's going to care until something drastic happens.
Precisely.
But if you want to become someone that's more politically active, it's important they're able to animate consciousness based around that marginal worsening. Because it's a small thing, but you understand on aggregate it's going to cause drastic harm.
Agreed. And obviously from us, rest in peace to Oab.
Rest in peace.
And I hope that his family feels some sort of vindication.
Yeah, and the wider thing that I just want to touch on is the economics of it.
Mm-hmm.
So people maybe be familiar with, within economics, there's this idea of externalities. So normally, a free market capitalist might think that we can price in everything such that people have an efficient allocation of whatever it is they want in their life relative to their other opportunities. Because if they really want something, they'll pay for it. If they really don't want something, they won't pay for it. But the argument for nationalisation, and a socialist argument for nationalisation, is there's certain things which simply cannot be effectively priced in to a market mechanism, which are oftentimes public goods, things that are shared with more than one person, or things that are can't be contained within a certain area. So if you think about sort of lighting down a street, say you happen to get like the tube to Tooting tomorrow night. You live in East London, you get the tube to Tooting. It wouldn't really make sense for you to be charged for the lampposts in Tooting on like a marginal level about how much you use them because your first time there, and it would take a lot of infrastructure to set them up. You get the point. And similarly here we have an instance where the market mechanism has totally failed to account for the utility loss and loss of life that these just child has suffered, but also in a more broad setting that people suffer when it comes to housing, because the market mechanism only recognizes the rent paid, the payer of the rent, water, utilities, X, Y, and Z. And on a higher level, Oab's law is a great starting point, but this is the most clear vindication of the demands for nationalisation that a lot of people have made. Do you not think?
No, 100%. And I think the case for government being involved, the case for a mixed economy of government's role in guaranteeing that the profit motive does not overlook the social welfare of people has always been clear. And the kind of the loss of that, is directly as a result of our politicians being co-opted by, as we've said so many times before, corporate interests. And so, again, it's important just to keep that conversation going.
I agree. That was not a particularly enjoyable state of play, but a very important one. We'd like to get some discourse going online, so please, guys, the question we put out there, get responding in the comments. We'll be in the comments as we always are, reading everything. We're going to get into a very quick, sharp backroad section, talking on a few topics you guys might not have seen. But as we say, links to the places we put in the bottom to support Palestine, Sudan, and the Caribbean, and will be left in the description, and articles addressing Oab's law and what happened in Whitechapel on the weekend will also be there. But with that said, let's get into the backroads. All right, we're into the backroads. So we are going to have a bit of a quickfire one here with some topics I prepped on that Sean hasn't really. He probably has seen a lot of them, but he doesn't really know what's going to come up. So I'm just going to throw these ideas out and see what this guy thinks. So the first one is coming out of Portugal. Fan of Portugal?
Ronaldo's cool. That's about it.
Ronaldo's cool. How do you feel about Burka bans? Because Portugal's parliament has approved a bill that would ban face veils like burqas and niqabs in most public spaces. The bill would fine individuals for wearing them between 200 to 4,000 euros. The legislation still requires approval from the president, but it comes from the far-right Chega party in the parliament.
So can I just ask, is the ban going to include all types of face coverings? So face masks, balaclavas?
No, specifically for gender or religious reasons.
Right, okay. So you have a Western order that talks about freedom of religion, freedom of belief, freedom of conscience, and then when it doesn't actually fit your definitions of those things because it feels a bit too exotic, a bit too different, then you basically just renege on that.
Bro, literally, like the advent of liberalism is clearly falling to the wayside because people don't have the freedom to have their own private sphere of what they want to do.
But as in, do we not believe in the secular principles anymore? Is this not what secularism is all about? Being able just to kind of navigate your own private and public life together so long as you don't intrude on other people? Sounds like intruding to me.
It's absolutely bonkers, bro. And I mean, like, we'll leave it there for that. But Portugal, I mean, Ronaldo would not agree. Ronaldo's out in Saudi kicking ball. Like, he would not agree with this. So what are you even doing, my guys?
Cristiano, speak up.
It's bonkers. And now we're not rooting for Maccabi Tel Aviv and the Israeli team, but now we're actually not going to be rooting for you, Portugal. Hope you get smoked. Okay, next one up, yeah? So, me and you were big fans. I'm saying were, big capital were.
Okay.
Of a podcast called The Rest is Politics. You guys probably heard of it. One of the biggest political podcasts in the UK.
Can I cancel myself quick?
Why?
Rory Stewart has a soft spot in my heart. I'm sorry, innit? I'm actually so sorry.
Nah, I can't. He's all right. He's interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, honestly, I think The Rest of Politics, they have interesting discussions, interesting insights because they've had really great careers within politics, but they are becoming the archetype of sort of tone deaf political elite, because The Rest of Politics are putting out a documentary on New Labour's relationship with Rupert Murdoch.
Right, so this is kind of like how Israel just investigates itself and says that nothing's going wrong in Palestine.
Explain to people at home why that is so bonkers.
Well, people don't realise that I believe Rupert Murdoch is literally Tony Blair's son's godfather.
My God.
And on top of that, obviously, Alistair Campbell was the architect of the whole Blairite era and head of communications.
He was head of comms for Blair. He's now the co-host of The Rest is Politics. And they think they have like the neutrality and moral authority to put out a documentary on what Alistair Campbell did.
As in the first time The Sun, which is historically a right-wing newspaper owned by Murdoch, ever actually supported a Labour government was for Blair.
It's bonkers. And honestly, I just saw it and I just double take. I was thinking, surely not. Surely not this guy.
But there is an interesting question around this topic around amnesia. So we're young people who have just kind of became politically conscious in the 2010s, right? And we don't really remember the ins and outs of the Iraq War, but our elders and people who are much older than us compare the Iraq War and the injustices of it quite literally to what we're seeing in Palestine now.
I marched against the Iraq War when I was 3. My mom took me.
Well, as in your mum held you.
I was walking by then. I was walking from young.
But then it is quite interesting how, and this is me being very vulnerable and open right now, when I see Alistair Campbell, I don't have the same element of disgust that I do.
Visceral sort of, yeah.
Compared to like Keir Starmer. And that's because in my head, there is a bit of historical amnesia around the kind of ins and outs of that. And I feel like they've remade their branding and PR through The Rest is Politics as they're just kind of happy podcasters.
I mean, you're seeing George Osborne do it now as well.
Yeah, exactly. But he's flopping. George Osborne's a flop.
Guys, if you want us to overtake George Osborne, I don't even know what it's called, but we need to be overtaking them sooner rather than later.
100%.
Because I didn't have a hand in the Iraq War. The final topic that I want to throw at you, £5 left your account last week?
Unfortunately, so I was going to call up Amex to be like, listen,
fraudulent activity. Where was that £5 going?
From your party, UK.
So Sean and actually myself, like the starry-eyed guys we are, we actually signed up to join your party. Does it feel like our party?
I don't even know what's going on, to be honest. I think it feels like just a shambles at this
Shall I tell you what's going on?
Tell me.
So obviously you were thinking of calling up Amex. You got Amex, yeah?
Let me
a fiver.
Let me know that.
But so you're going to call up Amex to call a fraud case.
Yeah.
Your party are currently trying to launch a case against their own members or their own leadership. So let me get into it because, bro, this Your Party thing is getting insane. The documentary is going to be mad. I don't know why anyone's watching Big Brother when you just watch the Your Party. So the Your Party is preparing legal action against a group of its own founders after a final deadline to hand over at least £800,000, 800 bags in donations passed without payment. Figures close to the party accuse directors of the MOU operations, of having gone rogue. Party insiders say that they reluctantly agreed to initiate legal proceedings, but they still haven't recovered the money. So who are these leaders of the MOU?
Oh dear.
It's run by Andrew Feinstein, who ran against Keir Starmer in the last election, Jamie Driscoll, the former North of Tyne mayor, and Beth Winter, the former Labour MP for Kynon Valley. I probably butchered that pronunciation. So the three helped shape the movement's early structure, but now they are on the wrong side of history, it seems like. How was it working with Andrew Feinstein in the last election, Sean?
All right, nice way to segue that in. So yes, I did all the social media comms for Andrew Feinstein in his independent run against Keir Starmer.
I'm assuming you didn't get paid for that.
I actually didn't get paid for it. That's actually so bad. Do you know what's bad? So he had a whole team, and I mean, classic situation in these political spheres. You step into the room, you're literally the only brown person, only person of color, and so everyone else basically got payment except me, even though I basically launched it. I'm not mad. I'm not salty.
Allegations?
Well, as it's not even allegations.
Is it Feinstein? Let's get send that fiver back.
No, but obviously you do it for the love of the game, right?
Don't seem like it.
Yeah, well, there you go. So look, I mean, I respect him a lot. I think he's a great person. Actually, you know what? Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. As a sassy man, my pettiness is actually just trying to creep in because I remember I tried to link up with him for a coffee, and he aired me. So you know what, Feinstein?
He didn't have £5 to give you for the coffee, innit? But now he's got 800 bags.
Oh dear.
Maybe even Al Caf. Feinstein, the company, El Caf. We're Whitechapel Road, Balaclava's on, we'll go El Caf.
Oh my gosh.
But honestly, I just think, yeah, to wrap it up on your party, because I think it might wrap up kind of soon.
Yeah, literally.
Between Adnan Hussein spouting a load of nonsense on the timeline about there's good people on both sides.
And he's a landlord as well.
And being a landlord and all the other nonsense.
Actually, no, two of his contemporaries are landlords.
It seems like everyone's a landlord in your party. It's not your house, but it is your party. And this is suing for 800 grand from Feinstein. And Feinstein seems like a calm guy. So
he's a good guy, yeah.
I have no clue what's going on. It's an absolute dumpster fire. And I feel like I've been hoodwinked into believing in them.
I think it's disappointing.
I was love bombed. Your party love bombed me. But like, honestly, I think we're probably on the same page. It's like, hope against hope. Maybe some miracle will land in this party does well.
Well, look, I've said this before, and I'll still stay on this hill. It's not a zero-sum game. It's positive sum. So if they do run and they do this kind of coalition with the Greens and they sweep up some seats across the country electorally that stop reform getting seats, then fairs.
No, I agree it's positive sum, but according to Zara and Jeremy, Feinstein is seeing too many positive sums right now. But we'll leave it there for the back roads and we will get into Let Me Land.
Welcome back to Let Me Land, and this is where I just throw out a little hot topic for Noah to interrogate, try to debate me, and hopefully we can come to some sort of conclusion.
Yeah, we want to give a caveat as well, because last week I was able to land pretty easily because Sean actually just agreed with me. But going forwards, we're going to have a bit more devil's advocating. So if you see me like flaming Sean up for if Sean comes here and says, "Oh, let me land, people shouldn't be starving," and you see me going against that, it's just because it's for the entertainment of you guys at home.
And then we're going to clip it with no context to make sure that it looks like that. So
viral movie.
All right, so this one's a bit unstructured for me. So you're actually going to have to let me land.
Cool.
It's this idea that capitalism's resilience is rooted in the decline of faith and a godless worldview.
Just took it there.
I just went there. Islam's taken over. It started here, right? Okay, cool. So how do I begin this? Right. It's very hard for us to imagine a world beyond capitalism or an economic system beyond capitalism. And I think the reason for that is because much of the worldview or ontological, philosophical beliefs we believe around how this world is structured is basically aligned with capitalist principles. So what do I mean by that? Well, the modern science, modern belief tells us that we are just basically animals. Our existence is just a mere coincidence, a cosmic accident. And so, as a result of that, there is a type of thinking which lends us to a social Darwinist worldview. Now, social Darwinism is another philosophy which talks about the idea that because we are social animals, we and our human nature is rationally self-interested, we are materially motivated, and so existence itself is survival of the fittest. It's a competition between us, right? So that is the dominant worldview and the dominant narrative that governs basically most of our existence right now. When it comes to this conversation around capitalism and imagining a world beyond it, I like to compare it to two fish in the sea. They don't even realize the sea is there, and one fish asks the other fish, "Oh, so what's all this water? What's this all really about?" And the other fish is just kind of like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
Right? So let me just park that there, okay? So then now, the reason why I think it's so resilient is because the solution to it, which tends to be socialist thought, is actually built on those same principles, those same kind of ontological, philosophical principles. So to kind of extend that out a bit more, socialist thought is built on the same ideas around a material worldview. So we still are animals, and we still are actually motivated by rational self-interest. And so even in Marxist philosophy and actual Marx writings, one of the big contradictions in the literature is this debate between the fact that he actually litters his work with moral reasoning and moral arguments. However, his main argument is that the revolution, the collective consciousness that the proletariat will reach to overcome capitalism is actually going to be in their rational self-interest.
It's all materially defined sort of thing.
Precisely, right? And so modern socialists who actually depart a lot from Marx and those kind of like particular kind of writings anyways, it's kind of like they want to have their cake and eat it too. So they want to basically have this kind of godless worldview, and they want to basically be able to substantiate moral reasoning on principles which actually lends itself better to a capitalist worldview. Because for me, you know, having an understanding of the world not from God or the lack of the spirit, the lack of the soul, necessitates a social Darwinist worldview. It doesn't actually lend itself to having these kind of pretty moral ideas around fraternity, solidarity, etc. And so for me, I actually think religion is not the opium of the people as kind of like commonly misunderstood in a conventional sense, but actually religion is the way that can actually free us from this.
Okay.
There you go.
Bro, I'll be honest with you, I like it when you take it there. Take it to the moon.
It's a bit unstructured, but I think like you can help me tee it out.
That's for real. I'm gonna probe a couple things.
Okay.
So this idea that we need faith to move beyond capitalism or move beyond the material worldview, are you then conceding that the progression out of capitalism isn't materially determined?
Expand on that a bit.
So the Marxist idea that like the economic substructure or the economic underpinnings of our society will progress us out of capitalism as capitalism immiserates the proletariat and creates that sort of class antagonism.
So I think there's a difference between collective immiseration and individual immiseration. So the collective immiseration point is to say that the class interest will align such that there will be a collective interest to basically revolt.
Yeah.
When in the reality is revolution itself is actually a public good problem. And so it's depending on individuals to step up and actually motivate the masses to take that first public cost to actually galvanize a movement to revolt, so to speak. Now that is obviously very possible, but for me, it can't be done without some sort of otherworldly worldview, some sort of appeal to a moral reasoning that's not substantiated within our kind of material world systems.
That's the part I'm confused about. Do you think that people are not able to discern their material interests? Because if you do agree there will come a time when there is a material necessity for revolution, do you think people are not able to discern that? Or why is it that we need this transcendent enlightenment?
Because I think that individually, the way capitalism has actually, evolved over time is that modernity has actually brought a lot of comforts to us. It's brought immense comfort. So that kind of self-interested calculation for one to say that actually this is worth giving up to kind of revolt, so to speak, I don't think it holds anymore in the same way that maybe once did, or the reasoning might have once held back in like the industrial times when there really was like a stark difference between, or an obviously stark difference between the living standards between like the very rich and the very poor. Now that does still exist, don't get twisted, but with the explosion of the middle class, I just think that I just feel like to put it very simply, people aren't on it anymore.
I'm going to catch him with a classic essay counterpoint.
Go ahead.
You're only focusing on the West. Immiseration beyond like that ability to have those worldly pleasures of X, Y, and Z and Deliveroos is occurring with the majority of the world, just not in the West necessarily.
I know, but then what underpins a lot of Eastern thinking? I wouldn't say it's a lot of I wouldn't say it's a lot of like atheistic or non-spiritual thought.
No, I agree with what you're saying. But my point is more that like you were responding to my argument that in fact material necessity for revolution will be discernible. And you were saying, well, because we have these creature comforts, people aren't able to individually realize that collective,
class consciousness.
Class consciousness,
like that,
yeah. But then my response was that, well, in fact, that reality of collective immiseration is being seen throughout the world, just not necessarily in the West.
I agree. Okay, no, I completely agree. But I think that is inherently motivated by an otherworldly worldview. And so if you take, for example, the Arab Springs, okay, the ability to rise up against oppression across the Arab regions, people like to isolate that away from the fact that a lot of these people have a theological worldview, a very strong one as well, an Islamic worldview. And so I actually think for many of the people in these, it's because we're generalizing right now, so we have to be very specific, but they are not addicted to this kind of self-interested matrix that we see that underpins a lot of the thinking in the West.
We don't have enough time to get fully into this,
Okay.
so leave your comments below on what you think. But the final point I'm going to try and just throw at you
Go ahead.
is, what about like the capitalist religious people, the prophet gospel people that think like capitalism is the savior of Christianity and X, Y, and Z?
So I think that is probably the strongest response to what I have to say. And then obviously it would be up to me to basically define exactly what I mean by religion. Because
for you, would that be, you think you're godly, but you're godless?
Exactly.
I hear you, Jesus flipped the table sort of talk.
Precisely. Because actually I think like, okay, cool. In a personal sense, I want to say the way I understand Islam is probably the best way of what I really mean by religion or faith. Sheikh Sean, you know my thing. But actually, there's a really interesting body of work called the perennialist school of thought, perennialism. And what they do, they look at the intersections of all the traditional spiritual faiths, where understanding where it overlaps is what I'm interested in. Because not to say that that's correct or the right way to think about religion, but that's kind of what I mean by faith. Whether it's the Beatitudes that Christ said around how, I don't know, blessed are the meek for they shall inherit the earth, to the prophet talking about taking care of orphans, the zakat you have to pay, etc., etc. So
I hear you.
That's what I'd say.
Honestly, I think that's really interesting thinking. I intuitively, I maybe agree there. Sorry, not to obviously expose you as well, but you obviously have some sort of spiritual leanings as well. Go on, tell them my nickname.
The perennial monotheist. That's what I said.
It's what Sean calls me, the perennial monotheist. I'm not a Muslim yet, but I'm a perennial monotheist.
Yeah.
But no, I appreciate that. I appreciate that sort of thinking. I don't necessarily agree that this is why capitalism is so resilient, but I do appreciate the value in revolution of sort of a godly worldview.
It's complex.
Yeah.
I think, though, it is definitely a spiritual problem, first and foremost, but that's my hot take.
Okay, let us know if you landed that and what you think of that in the comments. All right, welcome to the Echo Chamber, where I am going to give you an idea that has been bouncing around my head for a minute.
Must be bouncing a lot of times. You bounce around that.
A lot of space in there. It's coming like the DVD sign going around the black screen.
Just ping pong.
But so the idea I've been having is that basically, to save the UK, we all need to go for a jolly up in Blackpool. We all need to go. The lads need to hit Skegness here for the weekend, and we will save the UK weekend by weekend doing that.
A little bit of Lake District with the boys.
A little bit Lake District with the boys. Okay. Head down to the Black Forest. All these sorts of places. Go watch Truro. I think they're playing in League One nowadays. All that kind of stuff.
Come to East London to hear all the sirens.
Do you know what I mean? So what do I mean by that? I think so many of the UK's problems could be helped, if not solved, by rapid government investment and nationalisation of the domestic tourism industry. Cool. Let's build out two sides of this.
Okay.
The social side, the economic side. The social side is kind of intuitive. Like, people in London inside the M25, people that don't leave the M25 like Sean, have no idea what's going on in like the countryside. I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of my childhood visiting North Wales, see my grandparents, and Manchester. And I was able to have that sort of wider understanding of the community of the UK, such that it was less imagined, to reference some of the texts you spoke about last week. I think a lot of the social division we're seeing in the UK is because people don't realise how similar they are. I'm from Tower Hamlets. I spend a lot of my time cycling around the country with a bunch of my Muslim Algerian brothers through all of these quaint UK towns, interacting with these people who might otherwise have thought horrible things about these brown and black kids from London. So that's one side. I think it would develop a level of civic education, people understanding the problems of their fellow countryman, understanding how the country even works. I think it's also just on a fundamental level, just great for people to see the nature that's available to them. I spent this summer doing the West Highland Way, hiking in Glasgow, or not in Glasgow, but flying to Glasgow and then going around there. I'm able to see Glasgow as well. I think it's great for people. It's also just very difficult right now because cost-wise, it's a lot easier for people to head off to Europe, mainland Europe. And maybe people think that's a better idea, but I think there's great things in the UK. That's the social side of it. The economic side of it is this idea that the individual decision someone's making that's best for them doesn't actually align with what the country needs. So the government needs to step in to offset that sort of market impracticality or market inefficiency. So I did some maths.
Oh, wow.
So I've looked at...
So be prepared for the numbers to be wrong then.
So I looked at if I was going to head to Spain for a holiday. Let's say, cool, we're heading for a week, 7 nights. I budgeted a little bit and it came out around £680. I then looked at if I was going to head up to Scotland for a trip to Inverness, get a nice train up there and all that kind of jazz. It came to £860.
Okay.
And let's say, cool, there's already a little bit of a association that Scotland's not a great place to travel as Spain. So already you're offsetting that as well. So now Scotland becomes even more expensive utility-wise. So naturally, if you're only concerned, if you think you're indifferent between Spain and Scotland, you're looking at the price, you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to go to, I'm gonna go to Spain. It's a 200 and something or other. It's cheaper.
Yeah. I told you. The numbers
It's cheaper.
weren't going to land.
But there's the difference for the government, and the government has this level of centralized thinking that they should be able to adjust the economy for, is that £860, okay, will all be spent within the UK. Mm-hmm. You get the train up to Scotland, you're supporting UK rail networks. You arrive there, you spend 7 nights in a hotel, you're supporting UK industry in Inverness. You pay for local transport. You buy yourself some fish and chips. You buy yourself food there. All of this is helping stimulate economic activity in the country. That plane ticket for Spain is, £80 maybe to British Airways, going to a British company, even though we don't like British Airways anymore after what we've done to Louis Theroux. But £80 to British Airways. After that, all the money's being spent in Spain. There's going to be a net loss going to Spain. And the numbers I even crunched, the UK has a tourism deficit of around £34 billion. We spend 58 billion annually abroad, but only 24 billion is spent domestically. So I think there's a real opportunity here for the UK government to subsidise domestic tourism for the social benefits, but even more so for those economic benefits. Keir Starmer, you're always banging on about growth. There's an opportunity to invest and definitely see some growth from it.
I'm definitely agree. I think it's also a creative way to get around or to tap into the patriotic feeling of a lot of people in the country. And so I think it's definitely something that is overlooked. I wonder why you think it's being overlooked though, because for me, this feels so obvious that this is something that should happen.
Bro, privatization.
Yeah, well, I was about to bring up as well. Like, it's so expensive to even use the train to get to the other side of the country. So.
It's insane. Like, how can it be cheaper for me to fly to the south of France than to go to Birmingham?
Italy, even it's like £30.
Bro, you can get to Morocco cheaper than you can get to Scotland on some days of the week. It's bonkers. Yeah. But somehow we expect for there to be a virtuous cycle of internal economy. It doesn't even make any sense. So as I say, me and the lads head up to, where should we go? Tenby. You don't even know where that is.
Bro, listen, I stay inside the M25.
But it's because
of that. Because
it's
of
a big reason. Because people want to see, if it was cost effective, people would want to see the great sites the UK has to offer.
100%. And I think I'm for it, but then also I do wonder how, because of like the patriotic narratives that are coming out of this, what people would scaremonger around if they see that now there's just a big push of all us ethnic minorities trying to come into their areas, etc.
Let them meet the mandem. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, let them meet us and they'll understand it's all love. But that's what I've been thinking about a lot this week. Maybe I'll crunch even some more numbers on that and write up a little
and get it right this time.
Get it right. Write up a little essay on that to send to Downing Street, because I think honestly that will save the UK, perhaps.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's my echo chamber for this week.
Nice.
Episode 4.
That was good, man. I mean, it was a bit depressing, the state of play, but I think we got some funny backroad topics in, so just to balance it out. But
and I mean, if we take it all the way back to episode 1 and we think about the ideology of Northstar, that was a big part of it. We understand politics is a serious game, but we want to animate it in a way that is enjoyable, that is interesting as well, because it actually can be both.
No, 100%. I think I'm going to get the Islamist allegations after this episode.
We knew they were coming. Honestly, it's just been a ticking time bomb, pardon the pun.
I've just been itching to get it out.
But before we go, we like to give a few recommendations for things we're reading, things that are nourishing our brains to avoid the brain rot.
Of course.
Well, what have you got for the people today?
So this book, I am delving into Techno-Feudalism by Yanis Varoufakis. And I mean, he's a big name on the left, and it's been long overdue since I meant to actually start reading it. But it's really fascinating because the way he does it is very personal as well. And so I think it breaks down a lot of these kind of tricky economic concepts for people to explain why, capitalism doesn't even really exist anymore.
Yeah, so I've read a bit of that, and the thesis is pretty crazy, pretty revolutionary.
Very interesting.
For me, what do I have to recommend? I do actually. A blog that was the blog that made me fall in love with economics while I was at university at Oxford.
I wish I could say the same. I did not love economics at Oxford. Oh my gosh.
But it's called Mainly Macro.
Okay.
By a guy called Simon Wren-Lewis, who's Professor Emeritus at Merton. And I don't know how big this guy is on. I don't know if the blog's big, because it's just on one website, and I don't even know how I found it. But I'm one of his biggest supporters. Okay. And I've just been reading it. It's just essays, and he puts out a lot. Some of it are quite politically inclined, very well explained. I can't recommend it enough to anyone. Mainly Macro by Simon Wren-Lewis.
Nice.
Before we head, anything to look forward to in the next week?
Anything to look forward to? I'm excited about next week's episode. Obviously, I love you, but this guy is huge.
No, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for this one as well. I'm excited to watch, as you should be at home.
I know. And it's going to mark the first kind of growth of Northstar, so to speak, where we want to get more interesting people on.
We've got some lined up for November, some more co-hosts coming in to sit with us. We're going to have 3 mics set up, even though Tarek's pretty
Tariq,
stressed about getting that third mic sorted. But so much coming in the future. So please, as we always say, like, subscribe, comment. We always read every comment. There's a lot of comments nowadays, but I'm still reading all of them. And we will see you. Well, I won't.
Yeah.
I'll be watching you, just like people at home.
Yes, I'll see you next week. But in the meantime, keep your eyes on the North Star. Thank you very much for listening.